Hi, welcome back to RCC Online. Last week we looked at this obscure verse in the Bible that talks about a hedge of protection. If you grew up in church or something like that, you can probably remember going on a youth camp as a teenager, and before you could get on the bus, you're all ratty, and the leader settled you down, and when he settled you down, he prayed a prayer before you hopped on the bus. And he prayed for a hedge of protection over you. And the thought being that God would protect us. That there was a very real person, the devil, Satan you could call him, and he would love to see your life all messed up. So we pray for a hedge of protection over you. I hear this and I go, well, I'm sure the devil knows how to get to Bunnings, and if he goes there, he could get one of these big bad boys and they'll make a quick work of that hedge. Well, the whole idea of the hedge of protection comes from the book of Job. Satan, along with his other angelic beings, both good and bad, were summoned to present themselves before God. It's in that setting that we see a cosmic chess game played out between Satan and God. Satan is bragging about how many people have bought into his lies and rejected the reign and rule of God. So God says, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil." Doesn't mean the guy is perfect. In fact, Job is so aware of his shortcomings that he would regularly perform a sacrifice as a way of putting things right between himself and God. What he did have was integrity, which means the guy you saw on Sunday morning in church was the same guy you saw Monday at work. It's just he would not only regularly ask God to forgive him of his sins and his shortcomings, he would seek God for direction. Some of us go out and we set goals for our life, and then ask God to come along and bless them. Not Job. He would take time out to find what God was wanting to do and then set his goals and agendas around that agenda. Well, God and Satan are having this conversation, and God goes, "Have you noticed my servant Job?" Look here at Satan's reply. "Have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands, so his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land." As a farmer, Job lived in a day and age where barbed wire had not yet been invented, and with lions and bears roaming throughout the land, at night livestock were corralled into paddocks that were surrounded by a hedge. The hedge would be made of a bush that was inundated with 5 centimetre long thorns. The hedge became an impenetrable barrier. On one side of the hedge there would be a baby lamb, and on the other side there would be a pack of hungry lions. It's just the thorns were so long and the hedge was so thick and so high, there was no way the lions could ever get near the lambs. The accusation that Satan is making here is that Job follows God out of self-interest. The guy was like the richest guy on the planet. He had the perfect family, he had perfect health, he had so much wealth that he was earning money quicker than he could spend it. Satan interjects with, "Well, God, the only reason Job serves you is everything he touches turns to gold. You put a hedge around the guy. You put an impenetrable barrier between him and the realities of life. Take down that barrier and you watch. He'll turn his back on you quicker than you can say Jack Robinson." What unfolds is unbelievable. The guy suffers on a level that few people have in history. A cosmic battle is being played out in heavens and he knows nothing about it. He wakes up one morning, and as far as he's concerned, it's a morning like any other morning, and he's just going about his routine. He's having his coffee, he's reading the paper. I don't know what he was doing, but he was doing what he would normally do. Then out of nowhere, this guy came rushing towards him. He's panting, he's puffing, and he says, "Job, Job, Job, you're not going to believe what's just happened. You know those 500 yoke of oxen that you had us ploughing the back paddocks with? Well, those dirty, filthy, rotten Sabaean raiders, they came and they've taken a lot of them along with your 500 donkeys. To make matters worse, I'm the only farmhand they didn't kill. So we have no hope of getting this year's crop planted." While that servant is still explaining what has just taken place, another servant comes running and he goes, "Job, Job, 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 you know how you told us to take the sheep and graze them in the meadow? Well, these huge thunderstorms come up, and when the lightning struck all over the place, and it started bushfires, and we did our level best to fight those fires. It's just they got out of control. And now you have no sheep. And I'm the only shepherd that got out of that fire alive." I know of no one who suffered like Job. Yet as things get worse, insight drips from his pen for all to read. It doesn't matter how you look at it, what Job is about to go through is not fair. And when life seems unfair, we cannot help but ask the questions, why would God let this happen to someone that is so faithful? Job was a model of trust and obedience, and yet God allowed him to suffer. If this cosmic battle takes place, it's obvious that God loves Job, but that will not shelter him from the setbacks, tragedies, and sorrows of life. You can take this thought to the bank. Sorrow strikes Christ followers and non-Christ followers alike. I've heard it said you're either coming out of a challenge, in the middle of a challenge, or on the verge of entering a challenge. Well, things go from bad to worse. Another servant runs up to Job with the news that 3 bands of Chaldean raiders have taken all the camels, killed all your servants to the exception of himself. And just when you think things cannot possibly get any worse, another servant arrives with words that while his kids were having a sibling get-together, a tornado struck their house where they were meeting in. Now all his kids are dead. Job then suffers a complete collapse in his health. And during this depressing ordeal, the only comfort he gets from his wife is, "So why don't you curse God and die?" That mustn't have been encouraging. Why don't you curse God and die? His friends turn up. There's 4 of them, and the first 3 of them, and they're there to comfort him, but instead of comforting, they take one look at him and go, "Job, you must have done something really bad to have this happen to you." It's like they're saying, "Well, this is karma giving back to you what you've done to other people. We always thought you're a righteous man. Before you die, tell us what your secret sin is." In the midst of this onslaught of grief and sorrow, Job looks at his buddies and goes, "I have no secret sin." Then he turns to his wife, declaring that he will never, ever curse God. I don't know about you, but I've seen people curse God for trivial things like the ice cream machine at McDonald's being out of order. There's something about this book that makes me feel uncomfortable. We don't know how long Job suffered. It was at least a couple of months, but probably less than a year. What we do know is there is a battle raging in heaven that Job knows nothing about. And last week we looked at how this book gives us insights into the character of Satan. Today we're going to look at the character of God. Before we do that, I want to share with you 4 views of suffering that are seen here. Here's the first one. As far as Satan was concerned, the only time Job, or you could just as easily put your name there, the only time people believe in God is when they're prospering and living in a state of non-pain. This was so wrong. It didn't matter what happened, Job would not turn his back on God. Here's the second view of suffering. Job's wife and the 3 of his closest friends shared a different view. They said that suffering is God's judgment for sin. And it is true, there have been times when God has said, "Enough is enough. I just can't stand it anymore. I've got to intervene. I've got to do something." I think that's what happened to Pharaoh in Egypt. God had repeatedly said warnings, "Let my people go. This has got to stop, Pharaoh." But he just ignored the warnings. And God judged him. And yet, within 30 years of Jesus returning to heaven, there were thousands and thousands of Christians all over the world. Nero, the emperor of Rome, saw them as an enemy, and he had them rounded up and slaughtered in the most horrendous ways. It was in that setting that many Christians asked, "When's this going to stop? Where is God in this?" Which Peter, God had been with Jesus for 3 years, and he's at the end point of his life. And he's weighing all this up, and he said, "Let me tell you what the Lord would say. The Lord isn't really slow about his promise. He's promised to invoke justice, to bring judgment, as some people think. No, he's being patient for your sake. He does not want anyone to be destroyed, but wants everyone to repent. He wants everyone to turn to him." All I'm saying is some suffering is a result of God's judgment, but that's a rare thing, not a common thing. Job had another friend that said suffering is God's way of getting your attention so he can teach you and discipline you and refine you. And while it is true that we might learn some things through suffering, we might not learn anywhere else. Not all lessons are learned through suffering, and not all lessons learned through suffering benefit us. Ever seen someone get bitter from suffering? I have. Well, for 38 long chapters, Job has these well-intentioned people do their level best to give him comfort. Yet the idle talk did nothing more than bring him distress. Not all advice is going to help you. Maybe you know someone that was well-intentioned, they loved you, but they cared for you, but their advice actually damaged your life. And that's what was happening here. Well, after 38 chapters of prolonged dribble, God speaks. And God says, "I didn't cause this suffering. There was something far bigger in view here. Hey, Job, everything on this planet is broken. So suffering is inevitable. And yet through it, you can learn to trust me, not for what I do, but for who I am." With that as a background, I want to share with you 6 insights about God. Well, after an extended period of dialogue between God and Job, Job says this. He says, "I know you can do anything, and no one can stop you. Now let's just pause right there. Insight number one, there is nothing God cannot do. I don't care what's happening in your life, there is nothing God cannot do. Job has finally come to realize that his Lord and Master was capable of doing anything, any way he pleases, with anyone he wishes, as long as he desires. Theologians grab hold of this thought and they give it the word omnipotence. Let's just unpack that for a moment. Omnipotence. The first part, omni, means all or everywhere. The second part, potent, means powerful, effective. God is all-powerful. He dwells in absolute and unlimited might and strength and power. A.W. Tozer, the famous preacher, wrote about this, and he said, because he has at his command all the power in the universe, the Lord God omnipotent can do anything as easily as anything else. All his acts are done without effort. He expends no energy that must be replenished. His self-sufficiency makes it unnecessary for him to look outside of himself for a renewal of strength. All the power required to do that he wills to do lies in undiminished fullness in his own infinite being. In other words, no need from anyone. He is able to create from nothing. We make things and people rave about it and compliment. You buy a brand new car and the first thing you want to do is drive around and show a friend. You pull the hood up and go, look at this car. And they go, wow, that's a nice car. You want to know something? That nice car, as nice as it is, has a life expectancy in Australia of about 10.1 years. Average car in Australia after 10.1 years goes to a wrecking yard where it rusts out and gets crushed and melted down. That's what happens. A lot of the things we have just don't last. While God, compare that with God, he maintains the entire universe. There are three things we can do in this universe. We can observe it, we can plan it, and we can destroy it. Contrast that with God. He sustains it. We can't even keep ourselves alive. An absence of breath for just a little bit of time, and we're gone. He sustains life as long as he pleases. He's even able to raise the dead when we die. When we die, our life on earth is over. We don't come back for a second chance. It's done. God sustains life. Nothing stands in his way. Nothing hinders his will. No obstacle causes him a detour. He's able to do all things. On 4 occasions we read in the Bible that nothing is impossible with God. And the first case was with Jeremiah the prophet. For 18 months, the Babylonians have laid a siege against Jerusalem. And they got a king called Nebuchadnezzar, and he's just wreaking havoc on the place. People are starving. For 18 months, nothing has gone in, and nothing has gone out. And eventually, they break through the walls. And Zedekiah, who was a godless king, had Jeremiah thrown into prison. And as Nebuchadnezzar is on the verge of breaking through the walls of Jerusalem, panic overcomes the nation. They all know what awaits them, and there is nothing they can do to stop it. They know that their fate is sealed. They know that any day now, the Babylonians are going to plunder the land, and the people, they're going to maim the people, they're going to kill the people, they're going to destroy the people, and those they don't maim, kill, and destroy, they're going to take back as slaves to Babylon. In a moment where there's no hope and no thought of a future, Jeremiah prophesied that your time of captivity will come to an end, and God will bring you back to nation. For why? For nothing is too hard for you. The second time the scriptures tell us that nothing is impossible for God is when an angel appears to the teenage Mary and says, hey, good news, Mary, you have found favor before God, and you're going to be blessed, and you're going to give birth to the Messiah, and he's going to be called Emmanuel, God with us. And Mary goes, how can this be? For I am a virgin. What did she hear? The angel says, for with God, nothing will be impossible. The third time was when this rich young ruler showed genuine interest in following Jesus. He walks up to Jesus and he says, Jesus, what have I got to do to inherit eternal life? So Jesus gives him a list of commands. He goes, I followed them all of my life. Jesus hones in and he goes, give all that you have, sell everything you have, liquidate your assets, and give it to the poor. He walked away miserable. You see, money meant a great deal to him. His possessions guided his life. And we're told, when Jesus saw this, he said, how hard it is for the rich to enter the kingdom of God. In fact, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of God. Everyone's thinking, well, what's the use then? If anyone in this world's ever going to be saved, what hope have I got of being saved? And Jesus says this, what is impossible for people is possible with God. Maybe you've got a friend or a relative of a work colleague. For all intents and purposes, they show no interest in the things of God. You've tried to invite them to church. You've tried to tell them your God story. It's like water off a duck's back. Listen to me. God can find a way where there is no other way. Well, the fourth time we read that God can do anything is in the book of Job. In an effort to relieve his pain, Job is sitting in a pile of ashes. His body is covered in sores. There's pus oozing out of sores broken out all over his body. He's broke. His family are gone. It's in that setting that Job says this, I know that you can do anything and no one can stop you. That leads me to the second insight. God's purposes cannot be stopped. God was not caught off guard when the pandemic hit the world. When life goes crazy, it doesn't catch God off guard. I have a Garmin in my car. I use it for navigation. It's about 10 years old, so I've never updated it. I don't know how to update it. And from time to time, it tells me to go on a road that no longer exists. And so this message comes up, and it says, replanning route. Let me tell you, God has no need to recalculate his plans. His ways are perfect. Let's have a moment of honesty. Would you agree with me that the vast majority of your prayer life is an attempt to get God to adjust his plans so that you can acquire more pleasure and less pain? Jesus responds to the rich young ruler. You want eternal life? Sell everything you have and give your wealth to the poor. Do you know why the guy walked away? He walked away because he was happy to have Jesus Lord over his morality. He was happy to have Jesus Lord over his belief system. What he wasn't happy about was having Jesus Lord over his finances. He didn't want to have to trust God for that. We would do well to remember that God is the potter and we are the clay. And the clay is wasting its time to tell the potter what to do. All I'm saying is it's impossible to stop God's purposes. Insight number 3 about the character of God. There are things about God you're not going to understand. Now remember, Job is having this intense conversation with God and is kind of questioning the ways of God. So God explains to Job a few of the mysteries of the universe, to which I imagine Job threw his hands up in the air and said, who is this, talking to himself, that questions my wisdom with such ignorance? It is I. And I was talking about things I knew nothing about, things far too wonderful for me. God doesn't have to explain himself. He doesn't owe us that. And even if he did, we wouldn't understand it anyway. He owes us nothing. We owe him everything. Here's the way Paul put it. Oh, how great are God's riches and wisdom and knowledge. How impossible it is for us to understand his decisions and his ways. Isaiah put this a little bit different. He said, for just as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. The rain and the snow come down from the heavens and stay on the ground to water the earth. They cause the grain to grow, producing seed for the farm and bread for the hungry. It is the same with my word. I send it out and it always produces fruit. It will accomplish all I want it to, and it will prosper everywhere I send it. Don't waste your time trying to explain the unknowable. The best medical doctors in the world at times get baffled. And two people get cancer and they don't know why one person gets cancer and the other doesn't. There are questions that you'll never know the answer to. All I know is if God permits it, it will be for his purpose. And all I know is I'm not going to throw what faith I have away just because of something I don't understand. Fourth insight, character of God. The closer you get to God, the less people will be able to intimidate you. Job said, I had only heard about you before, but now I have seen you with my eyes. I take back everything I said, and I sit in dust and ashes to show my repentance. For days, Job's friends had accused him of having some secret sin, and that's why his life had fallen apart. Come on, Job, tell us your secret sin. Like a parent lying in bed as their baby cried in the middle of the night, Job had tried to roll over and ignore the cries. It's just like a crying baby. His friends had worn him down. His health was gone. His family were gone. His wealth was gone. And now he was emotionally spent. And yet from one encounter with God, he gains a fresh perspective on life. From one encounter with God, he goes, I'm not going to walk away from what I know on the basis of what I don't understand. And as he looks back over a period of suffering, he realizes that those questions of why me and why now, were shallow. They were superficial. He has come to a place where he has stopped making demands. Are you in that place today? Job's friends thinking that he's sitting in an ash field of sorrow, when in reality, he's sitting and resigned in God's will. Hey, that leads me to insight number 5. God's silence, we're talking about his character now, God's silence does not mean he is absent. After the Lord had finished speaking to Job, he said to Eliphaz the Temanite, I am angry with you and your 2 friends, for you have not spoken accurately about me, as my servant Job has. So take 7 bulls and 7 rams and go to my servant Job and offer a burnt offering for yourself. My servant Job will pray for you, and I will accept your prayers on your behalf. I will treat you as you deserve. I will not treat you as you deserve, and for you have not spoken accurately about me, as my servant Job has. So Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite did as the Lord commanded them, as the Lord accepted Job's prayer. Job's 3 friends had interpreted God's silence as absence, but that was not the case. His 3 friends have made fools of themselves in the process, taken advantage of Job's misfortune. They should have prayed for him and helped him. Instead, they just sat there and criticized him. And God goes, Job, I want you to do for them what they should have done for you. I want you to pray for them. Extend grace to them, Job. Interestingly, when Job prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his fortunes. In fact, the Lord gave him back twice as much as he had before. That leads me to insight number 6. We're talking about God's character here. God loves to bless people. The Lord accepted his prayers, and the Lord blessed him in ways beyond his wildest imagination. Job got to live another 140 years. He got twice the wealth he had before. He got a brand new family, and we're told that his daughters were just incredibly nice girls. He didn't endure those years. He learned to live above his circumstances. And if Job were here today, and he could talk to us today, you know what I think he would say? I think he would say, if you're going through hell right now, here's my advice. Don't stop, keep going. And if you've like Job's 3 friends and some judgment is being meted out to you, there will always be an element of grace attached where God is. Let's pray. Loving Father, I want to thank you that you're a God that restores. I want to thank you that you're a God that loves us and blesses us. And sometimes there's things happening in our world, we have no idea what it is. But I'm praying for everyone that's watching, that even when life doesn't make sense, that they would not throw away their faith, but they would deepen their faith that they have in you. And I pray for this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. God bless, and I'm hoping we'll be back in our building next week.
Thank you for joining us online at Runcorn Christian Church. We're continuing to grow our online presence, so please check in frequently on our website and social media platforms to stay up to date with the latest services that we have available. Make sure you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a single video. To support the ongoing work of Runcorn Christian Church and partner in our vision, we'd like to invite you to give electronically. You can make a direct debit transfer using the account details that are on the screen and also on our webpage. Thank you again for joining us today, and God bless.